Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Jack. I want to do a quick video on a very important topic that will have profound implications on you and your loved one's health and safety that few people are talking about, and this is making daylight savings time permanent. When I first heard that the bill passed the Senate without any fuss, I was happy because changing the time twice a year I knew wreaks havoc on our health. But then I started taking a deeper look into whether permanent daylight savings or permanent standard time makes more sense. The information I found while doing this research on this question is pretty astonishing. We'll be talking about why this is a terrible idea to have permanent daylight savings time and what it will do to our health, why it's being done, and how historically this has been proven to be a bad idea already. The argument I will be making is that our legislatures are picking the wrong time to make permanent. It should be standard time that becomes permanent. Oh, and for those of you that are UNC fans, like myself, that game last night in the Final Four was fantastic. Comment below, let me know what you guys thought of the game if you're a fan. But I do wish Coach K a fantastic retirement. But let's go Tar Heels. So on March 15th of 2022, a vote was made to make U.S. clocks permanent daylight savings time in the Sunshine Protection Act. There was bipartisan support and the bill passed without any objections. The idea is that it will extend daylight hours and people will spend more money on restaurants, shopping, and various forms of entertainment. If it passes without any debate and the president signs it, it will go into effect in the autumn of 2023. And the time changing for the last 80 years will finally come to an end. It sure sounded good when Senator Rubio said, quote, "You want the ability to spend more time in the evening outdoors," end quote. And Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts states, quote, "Getting that extra hour of sunshine into people's lives is essential," end quote. Making the argument that it makes people happier, reduces traffic accidents, and increases economic activity. We will talk about all the facts in this video and what experts outside the halls of our politicians are saying. I want to do this video because of the importance of this bill and the noticeable lack of knowledge in the public on the repercussions of permanent daylight savings time. By the way, just so we are all on the same page, the saying of spring forward by 1 hour is daylight savings and fall backward by 1 hour is standard time. Polls show many people prefer daylight savings because of the longer summer days, but fail to realize that the trade-off is for the longer dark winter mornings. I too was fooled by this initially and thought that this is a great idea. We finally get to stop changing the times twice a year, and for those of you with toddlers or younger kids, you know that this process can be a little painful. The public overall is typically split on what they favor at about 40% for standard time and 30% for daylight savings time. However, one thing is clear is that 60 to 90% of people want to stop changing the clock twice a year. Overall, permanent standard time is better for our health compared to permanent daylight savings. The springtime change of daylight savings time shocks our circadian rhythm with an average loss of sleep of 19 to 40 minutes, and this leads to negative reaction times and hence a spike of 17% in traffic fatalities in the US the Monday after the change of time. Even a week later, there is an increase in traffic deaths of nearly 6%. There's also an increase in medical errors that occur in hospitals due to lack of sleep. The spring forward that occurs leads to increases not only in traffic deaths, but also hospitalizations, accidents in the workplace, and loss of productivity. We see an increase of strokes by 9% and heart attacks by 24 to 50% the Monday after. This continues for the week after at about 5 to 15% increase. Studies have shown that when we go back to standard time in the autumn, the rate of heart attack goes down to 10 to 21%. Research has shown that many diseases or illnesses are affected by daylight savings time. Things like diabetes, heart disease, stroke, hypertension, metabolic disorders leading to obesity, drug abuse, anxiety, depression, decreased immune systems, cancer, life expectancy, and much more have all been shown to be affected negatively. Some studies have shown that we never truly adjust to daylight savings time, but instead just don't sleep as long nor as well. The biggest issue is that our bodies use things like melatonin and cortisol to help regulate our sleep, and they are not in tune with society's new artificial sleep and wake cycle. If you watch my previous videos, you know that cortisol has profound implications on health for things like obesity and our immune system and so on. Too much lighting in the evening has been linked to all of this, and there was a recent study that shows that healthy people who slept with moderate lighting showed increased heart rate overnight and increased risk of insulin resistance the next day compared to those that slept in the dark. In northern latitudes, where winter days are shorter, there is a higher prevalence of seasonal depression. Studies have shown that it is most effectively relieved by adding light to people's mornings and not the evenings. Leading organizations on sleep all agree that permanent standard time is best for our health. So what about public safety? Well, the average American school day starts at about 8:03 a.m. and the median American workday starts at about 7:55 a.m. If we went to a permanent daylight saving, then people would start work and school well before the sun is up for 1/3 of the year. In permanent daylight savings time, we would delay sunrise until about 9:30 in the morning in some time zones. This would occur for anywhere from 3.5 months to nearly 6 months, depending on the area you live in. And we'll be putting our kids nearly 2 hours off from their natural circadian rhythm. They'll be essentially walking zombies for a significant part of the morning, leading to poor cognitive abilities. This would be particularly bad for teenagers as they biologically have a delayed internal clock that makes them stay up later and go to bed later. I think we all agree that in the morning, especially if we are sleep deprived, is not the best time to be commuting. 70% of all U.S. pedestrian deaths occur in the dark, and 20% of all pedestrians killed are actually children. Permanent daylight savings would be especially bad for children walking to their bus and teens just learning to drive. Starting school later assures our children, especially teens, get adequate sleep, optimizing their scholastic potential and health. Because of this evidence, many organizations have opposed permanent daylight savings time. Now, what about the economic and productivity cost to the nation? The days following daylight savings, there is nearly a 6% increase in workplace injuries in the United States. Not only do more people get injured, but they also are more seriously injured. An average of 68% more days of work are lost due to injuries during that time. Due to the decrease of 20% productivity in the US during this time, there is an average loss of nearly $450 million annually. The stock market also dips consistently the Monday after daylight savings with a loss as high as $31 billion. None of this is seen in autumn when we return back to standard time. The continuous loss of sleep on average of 19 minutes per night leads to an estimated cost to the US economy of $2.35 billion for health issues and over $613 million annually due to the nearly 4.5 million workdays that are lost. So one of the arguments for daylight savings is that it leads to less energy usage in the evening due to more prolonged daylight. Doesn't really hold true. Any benefit has been shown to be offset by increased morning and evening energy usage during daylight savings. All of this increases energy costs and creates more pollution. There's also an increase in oil usage and dependency as people tend to drive more during this time. And I think we can all agree, especially during this time, that depending on more oil and on countries like Russia for this leads to serious national security issues. Buy an electric vehicle, better get a Tesla, and you can thank me later. And by the way, if you are in the market for a new vehicle, then you need to consider the 5-year cost of ownership, as Teslas seem more expensive up front to own, but over the course of 5 years is actually cheaper than a Toyota Camry. Just saying. But moving along. So with this mountain of research and various organizations stating their position on this topic, why is this still getting traction in the US government? Well, part of it is lack of knowledge, which is why I felt it is important to do this video as it's in line with the theme of the channel, and the other part has to do with money. You see, when we add more daylight after we get off work, then you are more likely to go shopping, eat out, pursue various forms of entertainment, and drive more. All of this benefits the special interest groups that stand to gain financially from permanent daylight savings time. The retail industry, tourism, and oil industry loves this idea. That's why petroleum lobbyists and entities like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce have supported permanent daylight savings time. There's even a national daylight savings time coalition that was formed in the 1980s, made up of wealthy corporations from the golfing industry to fast food, amusement parks, convenience stores, barbecue equipment, and the candy industry. And in 1986, they successfully moved daylight savings from the last Sunday in April to the first Sunday of April, effectively extending daylight savings by 1 month. Then in 2005, they did it again when they moved daylight savings to the second Sunday in March, and then pushed back the end date from the last Sunday in October to the first Sunday in November. All of this extended daylight savings from 6 months to now 8 months. Proponents of permanent daylight savings tout economic benefits, but as we discussed earlier, the cost to the U.S. labor force in productivity likely balances it out and perhaps makes it more costly overall to move to this artificial time change. So we all know that popular saying of how history tends to repeat itself, and at the very least it rhymes. Well, the same is true here. Russia tried permanent daylight savings time from 2011 to 2014. It was shown that both mental and physical health declined during this time period. Here in the US, we actually tried permanent daylight savings time in 1974. People thought it was a great idea to have the seemingly longer summer days, but then winter hits and the support for permanent daylight savings dropped from 79% to 42% within months. This was also seen in the United Kingdom when they tried it from 1968 to 1971. The 1974 daylight savings time experiment that we tried was supposed to last 2 years, but it ended just a few months later because the public started getting pretty vocal about how miserable it was. Parents were not crazy about their kids standing in the dark for months waiting for the school bus by the road. This led to, unfortunately, increase in deaths of school children waiting to be picked up and taken to school. The other proof that we have that standard time is better is the fact that areas like the U.S. territories, Hawaii, and Arizona have had permanent standard time for decades now and have stayed on it. Currently, Congress allows states to stay on standard time, but permanent daylight savings is prohibited. To sum it all up, permanent daylight savings time leads to artificially delayed sunrises and sunsets, and that leads to disruption of our hormones. It forces most children to bed when it is unnaturally bright outside and has us wake up and start our day in the dark as well. It robs us of the morning light that our mental and physical health needs. The downstream effects have been played out in various research studies and historically as well. Standard time is the most practical for timekeeping. It approximates solar time and it is in tune with nature's time. The fact is that day after day of doing everything at the wrong time, from things like what time we eat to when we sleep, builds up over time and leads to long-term health consequences. We need sunlight in the morning to train our circadian rhythms, to get our butts out of bed and to be more alert in the mornings and to sleep at night. I think it's great that we can finally stop this nonsense of time switching, but our legislatures simply picked the wrong time. By choosing permanent daylight savings time, we are forced to follow society's clock rather than the sun's clock. It effectively leads to permanent social jet lag. So I hope you found this video helpful as always, and if you did, please do not hesitate to spread this video knowledge so that others become more informed. Feel free to write your politicians, tell them how you feel about this possible change. And as always, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and do all that great stuff, and share. So thanks for watching. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Pura Vida.